Welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Emmett Muckles. Please visit iTunes, Stitcher, or emmettmuckles.com to listen to all the episodes for free.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast. This is your host, Emmett. If you don't know me now, you will know me in a bit, but that's fine because I am here for you. But today I have Zena Contreras on the line. She has some great information for you, and this is the Billionaire Lifestyle. So it's not about money. It is about living. We are spiritual beings having a physical experience, and this woman has some knowledge to drop for you as she is a coach, she is an author, she is a speaker. So make sure you go to her YouTube page, go to her Facebook page after this interview is done, and I am going to welcome Zena to the show. How you doing, hon?
Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
I'm living the dream. Well, last night we had some friends over, so there was a lot of things flowing in cups. So you know how that is, but I'm happy to be here. You know, I opened up my computer, I saw your lovely face, and the world began to blossom today. So I want to thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so very much for having me, and thank you for the compliment. That's nice to get that on a Saturday morning.
So let's go back. Let's go back, way back, because you're a very accomplished woman. You've worked with a lot of people. You've worked with a lot of companies. You've worked in HR, but you've been through some things in your life. So let's go to your early life. What, in your early life, what brought you to the person that you are today?
So it's interesting. I share that I come from the word I use is dysfunction and a lot of abuse as a child, a lot of neglect. And I don't hold my parents in any sort of resentment or even accountable, actually, at this point. I just realized that they probably did the best that they could under their own circumstances. But I was abused from the age of 2, probably up until the age of 16, different types of abuses and physical abuses at the hands of other people. And it sent me, I would say I probably suffered from depression as a child, but I was labeled as the black sheep because I would do things to get in trouble purposely so that I could isolate and be by myself. And one example that I give, which actually was a transformational experience for me now as I realize that. I was 2 years old I was in the second grade, sorry, not 2 years old. I was in the second grade when I started ditching school. So what age is that, around 8?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
How can you ditch school at 8? I mean, what does an 8 or 7, 8 or 9-year-old do all day when they ditch school?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Do you know what I would do? I would walk back home and I would sit in the closet and I would sleep.
Wow. Because
nighttime wasn't a very good time for me. And I never knew who was going to come into the room. And so it was a time that I had to myself. Now, more importantly, here's a question that should have been asked at that time. This child, why didn't school administration question that I was missing so many days? I was actually pretty intelligent, so I would always get a C average, B average. I all my life could do that. I probably, if I really put myself into my education, I probably could have been a straight A student. But why did no one question that? Why did my parents look at my report card and say, she missed 36 days of school at the age of 8?
In a semester, you missed that much?
Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely. Yeah. So no one really was checking in on me or protecting me. And I just think that it was some of the experiences, and I equate it to, and I love what you just said, we're spiritual being having a human or a physical experience. We are spiritual beings. And so I actually go back to thinking there was something divine that was actually taking place there, even though it doesn't sound that way. But that really was my life. I had a lot of turmoil. My mother used to say I was a hypochondriac. I could make myself sick, but I didn't want to be around family or family situations because I didn't know what could happen.
Yeah.
And so I guess I would make myself sick. I would make myself like I don't feel good. But understand that this was an 8-year-old child that was doing that. And no one asked questions, but they rather label the child as a problem child.
Yeah. I have to ask you this question too. What is your family background? Where does your family originate?
Absolutely. So my mother is French, Creole, and Black, and my father is Mexican. So being biracial or multiracial actually confused the situation even more. Here in California, a lot of people think, well, you just experienced discrimination in the South. Here in California, I like to say black and brown don't get around. They don't get along.
I've heard that too in certain circles, and I've experienced it myself at a young age, and I really didn't understand it because I thought that, as a young man, we were all in the same struggle.
Exactly.
But it is what it is.
So it is what it is. So I grew up in West Covina, which is a suburb of Los Angeles, and across the street was a city called La Puente, which is a Spanish name. And so African American people didn't walk across the street, and Mexicans didn't walk across the street. Because if you did, you were being confronted. So imagine this Hispanic-looking girl, and I'm going to be very real, with, a round tush, long hair, and her family is telling her she's black because my grandfather always said, well, the Emancipation Proclamation, if you have 1 ounce and you're black. And I'm like, but my mom is light skinned with high yellow with blue eyes. Like, how, what? Like, I don't understand. My grandmother is red hair with blue eyes. Like, how does that make us black? And what does black look like? And then on my father's side, it was like, your last name is Contreras, not Contreras, Contreras, And it was like, who am I? So there was all of that going on. And I also had very prejudiced grandparents on my father's side that once they realized my mother was black, it was like, oh, no, you got to get divorced. So there's a lot of dynamics going on in this dysfunction. I love to say, because of my Creole heritage, that it was a bad pot of gumbo.
But gumbo is good, though.
Gumbo is very good. But did you know this about gumbo, that if you do not cook gumbo and with the same spoon and you use different spoons, that you can taint and spoil that pot of gumbo?
That I did not know.
Yes. So people had a whole bunch of spoons in my pot.
But, that makes you... you don't realize it at the time. We all go through some things, particularly people of color. And a lot of times it makes us very strong, but it makes us very leery of moving forward in our life as people would expect. So as you move forward, so we've talked about the time when you're in grade school. What happened to you during your formative years, which is your teenage years, that may have contributed to who you are now?
So I would say I go back to being in the second grade because I went to Catholic school, and there was a nun who was my teacher, and she said, Zena, you're just not going to make it. And she befriended me. She really took me in. And I wish I knew her name. And she said, if you fail the second grade, imagine if you fail the second grade, I'm going to see about you staying here in the convent with me, and I will tutor you, which was unprecedented, unheard of. Like, the Catholic school just didn't even do that. But she knew that my mom partied at night, and she knew that I wasn't sleeping and so forth. She just was very intuitive. And so I purposely failed the second grade. And I lived at the convent for 2 weeks. I learned about prayer. I learned about serenity and about my relationship with God at that moment. And something happened where I couldn't live at the convent anymore. So I went to go live with a family, a Caucasian family in the suburb area. And the woman must have known that I was very fearful. She had 2 children, 2 teenage boys. And she said, this is what she said to me that changed my life. She said, you have your own room and you can lock your bedroom door. You are the owner of your own privacy and your own domain. And I saw the way these people were living, coupled with learning about spirituality and learning about God. And that really was the transformational experience that I glean and lean into all of my life, because even though those things did happen to me, I am the co-creator of my life. I am the co-pilot. I am authoring this. I am helping write this script. And so it really did help me. So as I get to my teenage years, still struggling with a lot of different things, with moving around, being evicted, all of these different things, I would lean into that because I saw that people live differently than I did. And so that would push me forward to say, I want that life. Can I have that life? It's open and available to me. I don't have to live this way, which made me even more of a black sheep in my family.
But, often when you come from I'm going to use the word ghetto, because ghetto really means a concentration of a certain ethnicity of people. But when you come from a ghetto, there's a certain mindset that you have, like, this is all there is, and you're not supposed to live outside of this community. But then you see, like, hey, I like what's going on over there. That should be available to me. That really drove you. I mean, it drove me because I said, like, there's more opportunity in this world than what I am seeing manifested before me. And a lot of times you get ridiculed for that. Did you get a lot of ridicule for saying, like, hey, I'm good. I'm about to move in my own direction?
Oh, absolutely. I was in the 9th grade when I created my first vision board. And I remember it being the joke when people would come over. My mother would come into my room and say, yeah, this is what she's dreaming about. Yeah, right. I remember being made fun of, and then I got to the point where I hid my vision board underneath my mattress because I just didn't want to be ridiculed. I mean, they were like, yeah, that's never going to happen. And I would look through magazines and I would befriend other people and other cultures to really understand, like, oh my gosh, this is how they live. And I had a friend that was a good friend of mine for 27 years, and I was really close to her mother and father. And I remember this one lesson that her mother taught me. She said, we were in junior high, and she said, oh, no, you cannot sit on the bed. So they were really Southern people. And she said, no, children don't sit on other people's beds. Like, you're not allowed. And I thought, gosh, how rude that is. Like, why are you inviting me over to play and hang out with your daughter, but I have no place to sit but on the floor? But that lesson taught me to really value your private personal space and that your bedroom is really your sanctuary. So as I had 2 children, I never violated their privacy, unlike my privacy that was violated as a child, because I thought that is your sanctuary. That is your place that you rest, that you pray, that you commune with God. I never violated them. I never really allowed people to play in their bedroom. When they had guests, we would pull out the bed or let them, camp out on the sofa or something. But that really taught me a valuable lesson. And so my bedroom is really my sanctuary. And what was my hell, excuse my language, is now my haven. It is now a place where I rejuvenate, meditate. And so I take from these different lessons. And you're absolutely right. When we grow up in the ghetto, and it's not just the environment, it's the mentality. It's the mentality, that stuck, broke, shame, blame mentality that keeps generation after generation after generation stuck. And I saw beyond that. I saw that other people were living other lives, and I wanted it.
So how did you move forward as you began to understand what your life manifested up to that point, but you knew where you wanted to be? You knew the pathway, the journey, the landing spot you needed to be. How did you end up, or how did you move towards that?
So when I was in high school, my mother checked me into the same high school 6 times because we moved around. So this is the 11th grade, and we checked in. And the school administrator said to me, "Oh, you're here again? What is it this time?" Like as if it was my fault, right? And I guess I built up some sort of resistance, but also this sort of shrewd manner about myself, like I'm going to prove you. I'm going to prove it to you. So every time someone would say something sarcastic to me, it would fuel me. So as my mother walked off after she registered me, and this woman continued to tell me, "Oh, you're back here again," I said, "Can I go to the bathroom?" And I left the campus. So I dropped out in the 11th grade. And, I did some things that, probably some people wouldn't do. I lied about my age. I lied about my background. I changed a couple of documents. And I'm being honest. I changed the document, and I was a little older than I was supposed to be. And I literally walked around that day, got a newspaper, and then applied for a management trainee job at a local convenience store. I got the job. Within a year, I was a manager. I was probably 17 years old and should have been 21 to be a manager at a convenience store that sold alcohol. I progressed, and I just continued to do that. I continued to learn from other people and their experiences and see how they were living and where they were traveling to, and just more stuff on my vision board and more stuff that I wanted to accomplish, and just continue to push myself, and just really was an avid learner. When someone said that I couldn't do something, I would learn how they did it or what their background was that made them think that they could do it better than me.
And, what you just said is a very powerful item. So basically, you took mentorship from the various people without having a direct mentor that says, this is what you need to do. You became kind of your outside spiritual guide for your own life by looking at various people. And that's one of the things that's missing nowadays is people, don't have mentorship and don't know how to extract the information they need to self-mentor themselves. So kudos to you for that.
Thank you.
Now,
thank you.
So
it was a journey.
It always is a journey. So how did you progress from there? Because you've done a great many things, and you started out, very young on your journey. And how did you get into HR?
So I started to progress, and then I really liked the people aspect of business, and I liked really understanding people, their background, and helping them find jobs. And so I started to lean more into like personnel when it was called personnel. Then I left the convenience store world, went to the bank, and then one of the bank clients in Beverly Hills befriended me, and he owned a swimwear company that was part of Fredericks of Hollywood. And he said that he had an office clerk position. And he hired me on the spot. And then there was a personnel manager who allowed me to start doing payroll and stuff like that. And I just started really liking that aspect of the business and learning more, all that I can, learn everything that I can. And sometimes I even dumb myself down because certain people will share more if they think that they're empowered and they know more than you, right? I learned this really, really quickly in business. And then there are certain cultures that won't share anything. They hold everything so tight to their vest because they don't want you to excel more than they have, or they don't want you to shine and they're not shining. So I became a behavioral expert, just really looking at people, and I leveraged that. One day I was working, and I overheard a customer say something about Disney was looking for a recruiter. And so then I went home and researched like recruitment and researched, all of that aspect. And I modified my resume to, yeah, we have to learn how to package ourselves appropriately to the different audiences. So I modified my resume and I had my first interview with Disney. And I guess I wasn't as believable as I thought that I would be. And so I had to come back a couple of times. They said no. So then I thought, you know what? Now I'm really going to get that experience. So I went for an entry-level job at Blue Cross as a recruiter. I learned everything that I needed to learn. I went back into the Disney environment and I was hired and I became a really, really successful recruiter. But I was hired at a low rate because I was an entry-level recruiter. And then there was this woman from England who said, oh, no, I'm a contractor and I make, 45 to 50 bucks an hour. And I thought, I'm working harder than she is. No. I want that kind of money. So I left Disney and I decided to go into contracting. And then I positioned myself as a solo entrepreneur, really started to work in the entertainment industry as a contract recruiter and started to learn more about the entertainment industry, again, leveraging what I know. And then I was always hired in entertainment. I worked for every studio in California with the exception of Sony and Paramount, and worked for Disney on 3 different occasions for a total of 7 years, and really developed a solid background where I was sought after. So when when Fox developed MySpace, I lived in Arizona. And because of my background, they came looking for me. So they actually put me up in an apartment in Beverly Hills to be one of their recruiters. And then I went on to manage their call center for MySpace and so forth. So it's just about learning. Every time I use this, everything is a lesson or a blessing. And you need to capture whatever that is or ask the universe, what am I supposed to learn here today? And I just use that information every single time in everything that I do, whether it's personal, raising my kids, obviously professional.
How can you give advice? I mean, what advice can you give to others who have had a hard or challenging upbringing?
I would say there's power in your upbringing. There's power in every situation. And what I try to do with my coaching is really help people to harness that power. But more importantly, I give people an opportunity to see their capacity. And once you can see that there is a possibility, there's capacity that you can change things, then you can start to have a vision for your life. Doesn't mean if the vision is really small or really big. I like big visions. And so I really want people to capture a vision for their life versus being in the rut, waking up, going to work, doing whatever they do as a routine. Really start to look at that there is so much available to us. And not trying to get biblical or spiritual, but God said that there's so much available for us that he wants to give to us. And so why are we living these small lives, regardless of whatever the situation is, regardless of whatever we went through? That stuff does not have to anchor you to your past, but you can harness that energy to move forward, to create a different life, to create a different path, to navigate, different darknesses, because we're always going to be faced with challenges. We just have to learn how to move around them.
Awesome. Now, how did the book come about?
So the book came about, it was 2010, and it was the recession, and I was on the verge of losing my house. So as a recruiter, if no one is hiring, they definitely don't need to hire me. So I'm a novelty at that point. And so I wanted to lean into God, and I wanted to lean into God from a scriptural standpoint. I wanted to understand the word. And so I got into my Bible. I moved so I used to be Catholic, and then I was non-denominational. I went to Baptist, and then I went to Christianity, which is I believe in God, and it's all one thing. So I started to receive different scriptures in my meditation, and they took me out of that sort of monkey chatter in my mind when I was getting the bill collections and the foreclosure notices and all of this, and unable to find a position. I mean, I even went back to a convenience store. I dumbed down my background so much I went back to a convenience store just to make some money. And I started to realize that these scriptures were helping me and giving me strength to be able to muster through that stuff. Coming from where I come from, a lot of people say, well, I'm surprised you're not on drugs or an alcoholic or so many other things. Those weren't an option for me. So God was the only option for me. And so I wrote a 40-day reader, and I understood the significance of the 40 days. And I challenged myself and I challenged God to show up. And as I started to write this, God showed up every single day, whether it was someone presenting an opportunity to me, someone saying, here, I've got $300 here, go on and go buy food. All of this stuff, God was presenting these opportunities to me. I was driving a luxury vehicle, living in a 5-bedroom home, 2,500 foot, brand new home in Arizona. And I lost my house, not because of God, not because of a test, but because I became fearful and I allowed the fear to really manifest. And then that's when I knew I needed to really lean into God more than what I was. But we go through situations, and a lot of people are like, well, God may be testing me and God is doing this. No, it's our ego edging God out. It's that thing inside of us that takes away the opportunity. And so with the book, I just wanted people to experience what I had experienced. Everything that I do in life, I'm not bragging. I don't boast. I live on the ocean. I drive this car. It's all to give glory to God because I live in that relationship every moment of the day.
And let me put a post on this, which is we're talking about 40-day living in this economy, which is a journey of faith in this economy. So let me give you the total title, 40-Day Living, a Journey of Faith in This Economy, which came out of so much strife at, at the turn of this decade. A lot of people were going through some crazy things. But, what's really awesome is once you have faith, it will carry you through because everything typically works out long as you stay focused on being okay.
Yeah.
So what does success mean to you, though? Now that you've been through that, now that you've been through the fire a little bit, what is success to you after you've gone through all these challenges and these blockades and these lessons? It had to have changed over time.
It has. I think, at first it was a status. It was a title. It was wearing certain clothes and driving certain vehicles and having that 5-bedroom home. And, and through that, God was like, it's not that. It's not that. So when I lost my home, I started volunteering and I started using my experiences and sharing my testimony. And I created this tremendous speaking career for myself and spoke around in Arizona, was actually invited to a women's organization at the Potter's House and would do a lot of different speaking. And so what I realized was abundant living for me was joy. And we have happiness all the time. We have bouts of happiness, right? I'm happy, this is this, I have this or whatever. But joy is so deep. It's in our core. It's in our belly. It's in our spirit. And joy is something that you wake up when you don't have any money, when life is coming at you, when you have illness or you have life situations, when you're alone. Joy is something that is in your spirit that's resonating, and it's like it's just fueling your body to get up and do something, to speak to someone. And so I have this tremendous audience on Facebook, and they're like, "You're always so positive. You're always." They have no idea that I'm in my apartment crying sometimes, that I'm an empty nester and I miss my children so immensely, that life is difficult and life is hard. So what is success to me? Success to me is the life that I live right now, regardless of the location or what I drive or the money in my bank account. Success to me is that billionaire lifestyle, because I have joy, and that joy carries me through all those obstacles, all those situations. And because of that joy, I'm able to forgive all of that stuff from the past. And it does not anchor me to any particular situation or have a scarlet letter on my chest. I am totally okay with Zena Contreras. Totally okay.
Awesome. So now that you're out, you're helping people exactly, and I'm going to ask you this as a coach, because what's your elevator speech? How can you help someone find their personal power?
So my coaching practice is spiritually based. And so first of all, you have to be someone who is interested or having a spiritual practice yourself or have a higher belief. And so my elevator pitch is that I really want to help you see the capacity in your life and understand that I am here just to remind you of who you are and whose you are. And so they're like, oh, well, what does that mean? You know, I can go to church for that. I can do that. I take back to one client that I have recently who has been diagnosed with so many different things, and PTSD and chronic vomiting and all of this. But she was in a 10-year relationship that really did not serve her. And she stood in that relationship, even though she knew that this person wasn't very good for her. There were some abuses. And so she was suppressing so much. And I'm not a clinical person. I have high school dropout. I don't know the medical terminology. I don't know anything. But my spirit told me that this chronic vomiting syndrome was a way that God was releasing her from all the toxins that she suppressed through that relationship. But all of the doctors that she had been seeing were saying, oh my gosh, you're depressed, you need these drugs, you need these medications, you need all of this stuff because, oh, it was so horrible, he abandoned you and he did this. And I said, no. You need to take responsibility for being in that relationship. Because I'm sure at year 2, you probably saw something that you were like, I should leave him. At year 4, it was really tough to leave him, but you saw some signs that were saying this isn't going to work. By year 6, you definitely knew this wasn't going to work, but now you're insecure and you don't know how to get out of this, and so on and so forth. And she agreed with me. And I said, so all of those years, you were suppressing so much. And isn't God so wonderful that he is allowing you to have this illness to vomit this out versus cause other internal issues, cancer and other illnesses. So now you can free yourself from that and free yourself from this person didn't abandon you. This person actually walked out of your life to give you an opportunity to walk into another life. And so it's about positioning. I said that earlier, but it's really about positioning and harnessing the information or the experiences that we have in a way that we can see that there's a lesson or a blessing. And that really is the crust of my coaching.
So what's next for you? What's on the horizon? What's your plan?
Oh, my plan is something.
Well, let me rephrase that, because it's not always your plan. There's a plan for you. There's a destiny for all of us. But and it filters through to us. So the next steps, what do you feel, what do you see is coming for you?
So I'm going to make this public disclosure right now. Yeah, I have it on my vision board if I could show you a picture. But for me, the journey looks like this, and it's pretty big. It looks like television. It looks like radio. it looks like, this is going to sound crazy, but I've already seen it. It looks like a Winnebago, and I am taking my team and we are doing free workshops. Obviously, I'm a paid speaker and I have books and I'm doing conferences and all of that. But I'm also giving back to the community and going into Detroit and going into Ohio and going into different cities where people may not be able to have access to me or other motivational people. And we are shape-shifting their life, just going from city to city, doing that. And that is how we give of our time and our tithe, and to be able to help people who may not have the experience, the exposure, or the knowledge that they can change their life.
And that's a plan. That's so very powerful that you actually feel and see it. And oftentimes our core, our chakras, our spirit will resonate in a direction that we need to go, and we don't go. We don't take that action to get that going. So you're located in California. So how can people reach you?
Absolutely. Thank you for mentioning chakras. I mean, not that many people know about chakras, but we have this internal energy system that really tells us and nudges us as to what we need to be doing, how we need to be doing it, and how life is showing up for us. So we could do that on another subject, on another talk show, because I love talking about the chakras, let me tell you. My practice is based upon some of the chakras, and everyone has to take an assessment which is based upon the chakras, which gives me a baseline. So thank you. How people can get in touch with me is you can go out to my website, which is askzena, Zena.com. You can follow me on the several Facebook pages that I have, and I inspire and motivate people every single day. I try to be real and transparent with whatever's going on in my life and what's happening. You can also see my professional background on LinkedIn. I'm not on Instagram and all those other things. It's just too time consuming. But you can learn a lot about me by going to my YouTube channel and seeing the videos that I've posted with different interviews and insights and wisdom and so forth. And you can also connect with me at coach.askzena@gmail.com.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you so much for being on the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast.
What an honor. Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, you know how we close the show out. You know what I need you to do. Sometime today, tomorrow, sometime in your near future, I need you to get naked. And the reason I say that is because I want you to understand or overstand your glory. I want you to take it in. We all have these idiosyncrasies and we have these insecurities about our physical being. And it resonates with our internal being and shuts it down or belittles it a little bit. But I want you to, when you get out the shower or when you get out the bathtub, take a moment after you dry yourself off and wipe the stuff off the mirror, which is the fog, so that you can clearly see that beautiful entity that is staring back at you. I want you to look in the iris of the image looking back at you and realize that that is a galaxy like the galaxies that are in the sky, which are in the trillions. If you don't think you're a billionaire, I'm going to prove it to you now. In your hand, in your arm, you own that. You are also comprised of cells. Those cells are little galaxies that bond together and work together, and you own those, and there is at least 1 trillion in your hand. So you're already a billionaire. Now it's time to stop concentrating on the resource of money and make sure that you have the things you need in life so that now you can go and manifest and start living. And I said this yesterday. I had a speech, and I want you to really understand this. We are human beings, which means we are people, all people of a color, which is our hue. We are in the form of man, and we are being. Love you all. Till next time, peace.